Mental load is killing your marriage, and she can't say anything about it. That's what we're talking about in this episode. I'm Judy.
And I'm David.
Welcome to the Marriage and Menopause podcast. Let's get started. I wasn't angry at you. I was just angry that I had to think of everything, manage everything, remember everything, while also being in the middle of hormone decline. And it was just like nobody noticed it was happening. It was hard.
Yeah, this episode's for the couple where she's exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't even touch. And on the other side of it, he's trying and she still feels alone. And neither of them have the language for what is actually wrong.
That's true. Mental load, if you think about it, it's not a chore list. It's kind of the invisible operating system that runs in the background of every single household. It's things like, what are we doing with the kids today? Who needs to go to the doctor? What are we running out of? What phone calls do we have to make? How is the budget? How are things going in general? On top of all the things that you have to do and things that you forget because, my brains are just tired during perimenopause. So that's what it is.
Right, and I did not see that was what the problem was for a lot longer than I'd like to admit.
So today we're going to name what mental load is. We're going to talk about it, and then everybody will know that we're giving you a way through it. If you've ever felt invisible inside your own marriage, stay with us. This episode was made for you. Follow us so you don't lose it.
So, tell us what mental load actually is.
The mental load is not about chores. It's about the fact that the chores need doing. And I know that. And I know that they're not done. And I know that I'm going to be the one to notice them at the end of the day. And that loop just runs through my head while also trying to have work conversations and manage perimenopause symptoms and also remember why I walked into the room and what I forgot. So here's what kind of goes through my head on any given day during menopause. The dogs need a vet appointment that nobody has scheduled. The plumbing that I forgot to call about, and we needed to get the plumber in for 2 weeks now. I just forgot. The actual work appointment that I almost missed. A deadline that I completely forgot about, on top of the groceries and prescriptions and working out at the gym, the coffee meeting with my girlfriend that I completely brain fogged out of, and the bill that auto pays, but I always have anxiety about that. So I have to check it anyway because I don't know if it's really going to auto pay. And underneath it all is always the low hum of, am I doing enough? Am I doing everything right? Did I forget something? Am I losing my mind? Is this normal? Why is this so hard? Is something wrong with me? It's always there.
So while that is going through her head, how did you put it the other day? Everything all together, all at once.
Yep.
My head basically is thinking about one thing at a time and moving from step A to B to C to D, while Judy's is going from A to C to B to G to F to H to Z, all over the place. And I didn't know that this whole system is running all the time. I genuinely do not know that.
So I think of it this way, and this maybe is a good way for everybody to understand what mental load is. Imagine that you go to work tomorrow and your boss asks you, so what needs to be done today? And then you have to decide when and how everything that needs to be done happens. And then on top of it, you have to remind your boss to actually do the work. And then at the end of the day, you have to check in with your boss to make sure that all the work got done. And even if all the work that was needed to get done for the day got done, you were still the one managing the entire workplace, managing everything. And that is what mental load feels like on any given day in the home.
And like you were running like a modern system, but you were running it with like Microsoft DOS, like before even Windows.
Yep, it's true. And I think that's what made everything just feel bad. So mental load hits different during perimenopause. That's next. And the piece, it's really the piece that changes how you understand all of it. So stick with us.
So tell us why perimenopause makes it a breaking point.
So mental load is hard for anyone to deal with. A full mental load plus hormone decline plus some sleepless nights plus some brain fog, it just crashes your whole everything, and nobody warned you that it's happening or coming.
And that's what estrogen decline does to cognitive function. The way I think about it, those of us who are Gen X, we remember when we first got computers, and one of the things you had to do, like, I don't know, once a month or so, was defrag the computer. Because if you didn't, it's similar to what happens with estrogen decline, right? Like processing speed slows, your working memory shrinks, so you don't have any more empty space. Decision fatigue, having to make decisions for everybody just hits faster and harder. The bandwidth that you have mentally that used to be there to manage everything.
Yeah.
It's smaller now, and the load did not get smaller along with it.
Right, and so David said it, it's like running a full operating system on half the RAM, and you need to defrag it. And then you can't defrag because something else needs to get added to the queue. Every question that you've got, every decision that there is, everything that someone needs, it doesn't become just inconvenient. It becomes exhausting and overwhelming on a physical level that's really hard to explain.
Right. So the thing is, it ends up not looking like a decision issue or looking like a overwhelming mental load issue. It just looks like you're stressed.
Yeah.
And that you're moody or you're checked out. And, again, as we all know, what is David?
A fixer.
That's right. So I was trying to fix the mood instead of looking at the load that was created.
Right. And the thing is, nobody told either one of us that this becomes a thing, that this becomes a thing during perimenopause, that my biology was making the load unbearable. So I think that it's my fault that I can't handle it, but it's not a problem that I'm actually having alone. It is like a communication problem, a marriage problem, but it really is a hormone decline problem.
Right. So it was a bandwidth problem, but there's no warning label that goes along with that.
Right. And you can't manage your way out of a bandwidth problem by trying harder, by trying to do more. What you need to do is reduce the mental load. You've got to reduce it, or else, you're going to crash.
So the 5 things I was doing that made her mental load worse without me knowing. And that's the next clip. So husbands, this one is for you specifically.
Yes, tell us the 5 things that made it worse. Tell us.
So watch how one innocent question turns into pressure during perimenopause. I was not a bad husband. I was an uninformed one. And there is a difference in that. And here are the 5 specific things I did that added to the load instead of reducing it. So the first thing I'd do is I'd ask for direction. And I'd say things like, what do you want for dinner? Did you call the doctor? Where is my whatever I couldn't find at that particular moment? And every question I ask is a task that she was trying to hand back to me. She was tired and overloaded already, and I wasn't helping. I was outsourcing my thinking to her. So if I wasn't asking for direction, then I was waiting to be directed. I would see something that needed doing and wait for her to say something about it. I told myself I didn't want to do it wrong because the two of us both have specific ways we do things. What I was actually doing was making her manage me on top of managing everything else. And when she did go ahead and start to do it just because I hadn't yet or because I was waiting to be directed, then I would sit there and go, well, wait, I was going to do that. I completed tasks, but I didn't complete the system. So I cooked dinner. I do that a lot, but I did not notice that, there was still grease or oil on the stove and it needed to be cleaned. I did the dishes. I didn't notice that the dish soap was almost empty or that, the sponge was really starting to smell and needed to be thrown out. I did the visible thing and I handed back what we call the invisible infrastructure.
Yeah.
Or the other things I would do is offer help at the wrong time. So at 9 p.m. at night, when she was already tired and worn out, I would just say, just tell me what you need, which required her to sit down and assess your own needs, prioritize them, translate them into a task I could do, and then manage my feelings about that task. And that's not help. That's just more work for her. Think about it like, you've asked a computer that kind of stuff, and it has to go through all of that. And then lastly, I would take her silence as an okay. So she just, at some point, would just stop saying how overwhelmed she was because saying it wasn't changing anything and cost her energy she didn't have. So I read that silence as everything is good, everything is fine. It was not fine. And she had just basically shut down.
And we ended up talking about this a lot. And like I said before, we did find a way out of it. But I think once David actually got it, once David actually understood, that was huge. And that's what we're talking about next. So we'll talk about the moment that David finally understood.
Yeah. So I thought I understood the mental load. I mean, I had heard the term. I understand what it's like, when I'm doing my job outside of this, which is underwriting. I thought it was, one of the good ones, and it was not. So here's what happened. Judy was sitting at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning. She had her laptop open. She's got 3 different browser tabs going, and she's got a notepad just covered in handwriting, and she had this look. And it is the look that she gets where she is technically still, but she is running at full speed on the inside.
Yep.
So I had brought her a coffee. I thought I was doing something good. She looked up, said thank you, and went right back to whatever she was managing. And I just kind of stood there and looked over her shoulder and actually looked at all the tabs. One was a medical insurance claim that we had been going back and forth with the insurance company on for 2 months. One was a calendar with things I didn't even know was on the calendar. And one was an email she was drafting for something I had forgotten we needed to do. And I said, when did you start working on all of this?
And I said, I never stopped.
And right there, for the first time, a light bulb went off in my head. And I realized that she has no off switch. That is the mental load. It does not pause when the workday ends. It didn't pause on the weekends. It did not pause when she was symptomatic and exhausted and basically running on fumes. It was just always running. And I had been living in the same house for years and had never really seen it.
Yeah. And I remember he didn't say anything for a minute, but then he just sat down and said to me, what can I take off your plate right now? And that was the moment that he got it. It was not later, it was right now. And what we ended up doing, we did an audit that makes the visible, the invisible, visible. It just makes everything visible. And we'll give that to you for both people in a couple to do together. That's the next thing.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the mental load audit.
Yes. You can't redistribute what you don't know, right? If you don't know how the system is running, You can't go through and see what you can pick up. So this audit is really how to make the invisible visible without turning it into a fight. So here's how you do it, the mental load audit. You each get a piece of paper separately, and you write down every single recurring thing within the household that you are responsible for personally. Not just the doing, but it's also the knowing, like knowing what has to happen, the tracking of what has to happen, the anticipation of everything, and then the managing of it. So you write that all down on your paper.
So when I did this exercise, I thought my list was pretty solid. I get to the end of it, I got like 10, 15 things on it. And then Judy read hers out to me, and I think I stopped counting at about 30, and you still had a lot more to go. And yeah. I had never once thought about, all these things that she was basically running behind the scenes, I guess.
Right. And the whole point of this audit is not to say, see, I do more than you. I do more. And that's not the point of it. The point of it is to actually look at it and to name it and to list it, because you can't team up on something that you don't know. So it's just recognition at that point.
Right. So after the audit, we did a couple of things. So I just picked up 5 things from her list permanently as my things to do. And we identified 3 things that were on her list that didn't actually need to be on anyone's list in any universe at any time. And they were just there from habit.
And that part surprised me, because some of what I was carrying were things that I had just, responsibilities I had made up on my own. I had sort of just invented them.
So the redistribution plan, how to actually transfer the ownership without it becoming another thing she has to manage. Because if you just transfer it and then she has to, watch you do this stuff, then that's not really going to work. Mm-mm. So we're going to talk about the redistribution plan next.
Yes, we are. And you did great with that. So you can go. You can talk about the redistribution plan.
So husband, here's the thing nobody tells you about taking on some of this work. She cannot be the one who has to manage the transfer. If she has to train you, if she has to remind you, if she has to check your work, then you really haven't taken anything off her plate. You have added project management to everything else that she has to do. So here's how we did it. I picked things that I could fully own without ongoing input. Not, I'll help with, own. That means I know when it needs doing. I do it and she never has to think about it again. So I took on my laundry. I do that and I just leave hers, because as I said earlier, we have certain ways we do things.
Yep.
And, woe betide the man who puts the pink shirt in with the whites and then mistakenly throws some bleach in there and now everything's pink. Or doesn't, or it's the linen, mm-hmm. and you throw it in the dryer instead of hanging it up. But so I just do my stuff. My stuff gets taken care of. I leave hers to hers. Because she has her particular routine, so then it's done. That's off her plate completely. I plan and cook dinners. We joke, if you've ever seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Captain Holt, and how Captain Holt is there's this one scene where he goes, I would love a beige smoothie that is tasteless and just has all the nutrients needed for the human body. Mm-hmm. That's basically how Judy would eat. Yeah. So I plan and cook all dinners now. I look at what we have on for food, and we try to make a weekly meal calendar, let her know what groceries we need, because she kind of takes care of that. But I cook it, I feed us, I keep her healthy.
Yep.
And the thing I used to wait to be asked about, which was the budget. So I don't wait for that anymore. I just kind of take care of it, and then we sit down once a week and we discuss it and we go over it so that we all know, what's coming out where.
Right, because we have goals, we have savings goals, we have bills to pay, we have plans and stuff. And so I obsess about the budget so much. So it's good that that's something that he took on, so I don't have to worry about it. And here's what I had to do. I had to let him do everything his way, whether I like how he folds towels or not. He does it his way, because if the laundry is done, the laundry is done, even if it's done differently, and that's fine because he likes it and I don't have to think about it.
Right. And to go along with that, I think part of this audit and part of this taking things off her plate is that one of the kind of guidelines you have to have is that neither one of you, if you are like trading things off or whatever, you can't go when it isn't done the way you would do it, say, you're doing it wrong. What you can certainly do is say, I think there might be an easier way for you to do it or a more efficient way. But if the ultimate goal gets to the goal, the way it gets done really shouldn't be an issue.
That's true.
So the goal is not for you as her husband or her partner to just become a better assistant to her. The goal is for her to have a partner who's running part of the operating system independently.
And that was amazing when I saw it actually happening, because it really kind of changed things for me in a way I didn't expect. Like, I hadn't realized how alone I felt in running things, but I felt so much more together. Like we were a team, and I wasn't particularly less busy, I was just less alone in it, and that was really good. So we're going to talk about the protected hour. That's one thing that we do every day that prevents a crash, and that's what's coming up next. Tell us about the protected hour.
So here's what helped more than anything after we, named what the mental load was.
This is big. Stick with me. Sensory and cognitive overload during perimenopause is so real. Every question costs something, right? A little bit of energy. Every decision pulls from an emotional pool, a nervous system pool that's already low. Every single request, even small ones, just land differently when your nervous system is maxed out. And after we named the mental load, something else had to change. It wasn't about doing more. I think it was about seeing more.
Right, and I want to say, what was required from me in that situation. So I had to actually start paying attention to what was already happening instead of waiting to be told. And when I think about this, I kind of think about what Wayne Gretzky said when they asked him about scoring goals and what his father told him. And his father told him, don't be where the puck is, be where the puck's going to go. So that's kind of it. You have to think of not what's happening right now, but what's going to happen 2-3 steps down the road. You got to look for the patterns, the routines, the things that she has been handling automatically. So instead of asking, I started looking, what was already in motion? What would she normally take care of next? And then I'd just go ahead and do that, knowing that that's the next step in the process. And, I'm not going to lie, at first I got it wrong sometimes. But over time, you get used to those patterns and routines and you start to see it.
Yeah, you do. And that is, I think, what changed things for us, because I wasn't being asked to explain, to remind him, or to direct him in some way, which was me managing the help. So David was stepping into what was already there, and it was like he was seeing it and figuring it out.
Right, and it's not about doing everything. It's about not waiting to be directed to do the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And during perimenopause, that feels different because it's not just the work that's tiring. the physical work that's tiring. It's all of the mental awareness and anticipation of it. That's the big one that sucks the life out of you.
And when I started to see that awareness, sharing it,
I stopped feeling alone in it.
and that's when things between us actually started to change.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the warmth of all of this and the good that can come from it, the repair as it would be. So what it feels like when the load lifts a bit and both people can breathe better. So keep on watching. That's where we are.
So what changes when the load lifts?
It does change. So when David took things off of my plate, he didn't just move them around. He took things and it was wonderful. I expected to feel less tired, and I actually really did, but that wasn't the biggest thing that happened. The biggest thing was that I was in a better mood. I started showing up differently in our marriage. I had more space in my head that I hadn't known was just occupied by stuff. And what moved into that space was not more stuff to do, it was us. So I started noticing David again, not the person that I was managing alongside, right? But as the person that I picked, the person that I chose, the person that I love. And that was really a conversation, I think, that I had with David one evening. It was not about logistics. It was not about schedules. It was not about what needed to happen. We just talked, and it had been a hot minute since we had actually just had a good, relaxed, nice conversation, and I had really missed that. I had forgotten what that was like, but that was a big deal.
Yeah, for me, it's when I notice her shoulders drop. You know, that sounds small, but it's not small because Judy carries her tension in a very specific way.
Right there.
When she's overloaded. And it's a particular stillness, and it looks like she's calm, but she isn't. And one day I looked across the room and her shoulders were just down and she looked like herself.
Yeah. And the mental load, I think, had been sitting between us for years. Not like a wall. It was more like, like static. Like something that just took up space, that noise that was always there. Not relaxing like white noise. But it just made it hard for us to hear each other, to connect. And when that mental load kind of pushed down and reduced, then we could see each other, we could hear each other again, and that was a big deal.
So we were telling you this because we want you to know what is available on the other side of this conversation. It's not just less friction between the two of you, it is basically more of each other.
Yeah.
So she was not asking specifically for help. She was just asking to be seen.
Yeah. I didn't ask David to do everything. What I really wanted was just for David to see what I was doing and to be there and to help me. It's a completely different ask, and it took us a very long time to find the language for that, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. The mental load conversation, it's not about fairness. It's not a scorecard. So you divvy, I do this, you do that, I do this, you do that. That's not what it is. It's about the fact that whoever's carrying the invisible load silently and also managing a hormone transition that nobody prepared you for, it's isolating. It is super, super isolating. And it costs energy, and that's why it can be exhausting. So you stop explaining because explaining can turn into a fight, or it just doesn't land right and it's not understood. And you stop sharing the weight and just taking it on yourself because it's so exhausting, and you get quieter and then distance grows.
And, of course, from my side, and I'm sure many of you are going to relate with this, you just keep thinking, oh, she's fine. She's handling everything just like she always has, because she is strong and capable, and that's what she's always done.
I was not fine. I was just coping, and that's a big difference.
If your wife seems fine, but also seems, far away, she's not fine. She is carrying this mental load, and it is something that you cannot see. So you need to ask her to show you the list. You need to sit with it. You're not there to defend yourself. You don't want to minimize, and don't immediately, try to pivot to solutions. Just see what's going on.
Being seen is not a small thing. For a woman who has been invisible in her own life for years, being seen is absolutely everything.
Yeah. And just before we finish up here, I just want to add something that we kind of were talking about when we were putting this all together and going over it, is that we're pretty lucky in terms of having to deal with this, because it was just the two of us. We had an empty nest. All the kids were out of the house. Now, some of you, I'm sure, your wives are going through menopause and you still have kids in the house. Maybe they're teenagers getting ready to, get out of high school and head off to college. Or if, you had children late in life, they might not even be teenagers yet, and you're looking forward to, another 8 to 10 years where, add on top of everything else that we were handling, and your wife is probably also handling all the scheduling, and, God forbid if your kids are in sports, she's got to make sure they get to practice and to games and all that other stuff. So that's just an even more intense load on top of that. So, that's why you need to have those conversations. So we have a workbook, The Menopause for Husbands. It is a free resource that we created. And we have also created a couples playbook for surviving perimenopause, and both are linked in the show notes or in the comments. So get one or both and start solving these problems and getting connected instead of letting them just continue on.
We are Judy.
And I am David.
And wherever you are in your journey, you don't have to walk it alone.
We'll see you next time.